Making your way to the chamber. Lots of discussion running around here this morning, and so we will be underway immediately here. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 28th day of session, February the 21st, 2025. We'll get ready and do our roll call. It looks like we are missing quite a few members here right now, actually. So, it looks like we're missing a lot of folks here, so I don't know if we can go ahead and start, and we'll hold it open. So, Chief Clerk, please call the roll.
Convening roll call for the 28th day, Friday, February 21st, 2025. Alamand? Andrew? Angelos? Banks? Bear? Brady? Bratton? Brown, Gary? Brown, Landon? Byron? Campbell, Elisa? Campbell, Kevin? Chestick? Clouston? Connolly? Davis? Eklund? Erickson? Filer? Geringer? Guggenmoss? Haroldson? Harshman? Heiner? Heft? Jarvis? Johnson? Kelly? Knapp? Larson Lloyd? Larson JT? Lawley? Lean? Locke? Present. Lucas? McCann? Nicholas? Ottman? Pendergraft? Posey? Provenza? Riggins? Excused. Rodriguez-Williams? Schmid? Here. Sherwood? Here. Singh? Here. Smith? Here. Storer? Strock? Here. Stivar? Present. Tarver? Here. Thayer? Here. Washut? Here. Wasserberger? Excused. Webb? Here. Weber? Here. Worf? Here. Williams? Here. Winter? Here. Wiley? Here. Yin? Mr. Speaker. Here.
It appears we have at least two committees that are still out, Health and Labor, and some other folks that are missing here. So we will continue on. We have our gentleman that is going to lead us in prayer today. Ladies and gentlemen, if we would please stand. Prayer of the day is going to be led by our good majority floor leader, Representative Heiner. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to start with a scripture from Psalms 37. Trust in the Lord and do good. Commit thy way unto the Lord. Trust also in him. Let us pray. Our Father in heaven, we are so grateful for this opportunity to assemble together this morning. We are grateful for the circumstances that allow us to be here. We are grateful for the friendships that we have in this chamber as we strive to do that which is best for the state of Wyoming and for her citizens. We are thankful, Father, for our skills, our abilities, our life experiences that brings us the knowledge and wisdom to be able to work for the better good of our state. We thank Thee for the dialogue that we are able to have as we listen to each other's ideas, as we are able to garner the information and make decisions based upon what we feel is best. Help us to recognize the value that comes from teamwork, the value that comes from listening rather than speaking, that we might be able to listen to others' thoughts, ideas and be able to extract those things which are best. We ask thee that we might be able to have thy Spirit in our chamber this day to guide and direct us, that we might be instruments in thy hands to further thy work here upon this earth. Father, many will travel this day, and we ask thy blessings to be upon them, that they will travel in safety as they return to their homes and other locations, that they will be watched over, that they might be protected in the hollow of thy hand, and that we might be able to return and be reunited again at the end of the beginning of next week. Father, there are many in our state that are mourning, that are going through personal trials and difficulties at this time, and we pray for their welfare. We pray for thy Spirit to lift and support them, to help them in any way possible. And Father, we pray that we might be able to recognize and be cognizant what in areas and with people that we can help and support ourselves, that we might recognize what we can do to help them. Father, we're so grateful for all the wonderful blessings that rain down upon us from thee. We recognize thy hand in our lives, in our great state, the freedoms which we enjoy. And we pray for these many blessings in the name of our Savior, or our Lord Redeemer, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you, Representative Heiner. Fellow members and guests, please join me in the salute to our flag. Please greet each other, ladies and gentlemen, while we wait for the remainder of our body to gather here, and we will complete the roll call. Ladies and gentlemen, if we can go ahead and find our seats and we can finish our roll call and then we can get business underway. We've got galleries full of young people and that are going to get recognized, I trust. And so then we got a couple privileges of the floor. And then Representative Filer's got he's nodding in affirmation. He's got something to share. So ladies and gentlemen, while I appreciate your ability to be able to enjoy each other's company, we do need to get this show underway. So please, let's get going. Okay, privileges of the floor. I'm going to go over here first. Representative Brown,
Mr. Speaker, privilege of the floor.
please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't taken a look in the gallery today, I think you may want to go ahead and rise up right now. And you're going to want to stay risen for a few minutes here because I think we've got a few privileges here, but it is my distinct pleasure and honor to introduce Miss Gormans, Miss Polly, Miss Case, Miss Nagy, Miss Torres, Miss Ellison, and Miss Waschenfelder's classes coming in here today from Prairie Wind Elementary. It's one of our newer elementaries here in Cheyenne, and they are here spreading kindness. And this is for a good behavior field trip, ladies and gentlemen. So give them a big round of applause.
Representative Brown, and the young lady that has got the bow and the pageant wave, well done. I don't know how you do the whole wrist. There it is. There it is. There she's. Okay. Thank you for being here. She's even got Representative Nicholas working on it now. That's awesome. So, okay, next, Representative Smith, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Privilege of the floor.
By all means, please.
All righty. Well, colleagues, if you look up in the North Gallery, I just want to share with you some cherished friends of mine. This is the Torrington Mennonite School, and they're from my district. And one of the things that really warms my heart about them, as I've become friends with many of their parents and school board members, is when you go to their school programs or even their church programs, it is almost angelic. You just feel the power of the Holy Spirit just through their worship. So that really warms my heart. But if you guys will wave, I'll start with, this is the 7th and 8th grade class. And we have Adrian, Austin, Jaron, Joshua, Justin, Marissa, Rosella, Katura, Sierra, and Evelyn. And then their teachers are Timothy Miller, Felicity Mass, and Lisa, Stolzfuss, maybe, correct? Good enough, maybe, right? Yes, no, thank you. And then the school board and their spouses is Norman, Noreen Hochstedler, Alan and Shirley Overholt, and Andrew and Linda Hochstedler. So we are blessed to have you guys here today. Thank you.
Good morning and welcome to the house. Glad to have you here and appreciate you young people and you folks that have taken the time to come, and this whole school board and teachers and everyone here today. We appreciate it. We hope that you continue on your way and are a true blessing to your community and as you move forward in your lives. Thank you very much and for all that you do. Appreciate you being here. Okay, we have Representative Filer.
Look, I'm already laughing. Mr. Speaker, can I have a quick privilege?
Yes, sir, you may.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Booing already. Booing already. All right. Folks, where do you learn to make a banana split? Sunday school.
And on that note, Representative Sherwood.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you all for the Friday good humor. And it just warms my heart to see so many of our constituents and so many of our young people in the room today. But I would ask you to stand and welcome the incredibly group of talented MBA students from the College of Business. They have come over today to learn about how policy impacts business in Wyoming. Welcome.
Welcome to the House, and it is extremely encouraging to see how many young people are coming and viewing this. I got to be honest with you, I never saw this chamber in my entire career. We never made it down from my part of the country. They may have, I didn't make it. I really wish I would have. I think it's an incredible opportunity for the young people to come and to see legislation and policy being created and to see and understand more about the process, and look forward to you hopefully being inspired to be a part of that process and to take your place among these folks that are lawmakers and policymakers that direct the affairs and the future of the state of Wyoming. So welcome to the House. We're glad you're here and we're thankful for what you're involved in. Any others? Okay, seeing none, do we want to go ahead and finish roll call? I think everybody's in here now, hopefully.
Allemand. Brown, Gary. Clauston. Guggenmoss. Heft. Johnson. Lean. Lucas. McCann. Ottman. Posey. Rodriguez-Williams. Storer. Wasserberger. On the floor. Yin. 58 present, 4 excused.
Thank you, Reed. Thank you, Chief Clerk. Journal Committee report.
Your Journal Committee reports that the Journal of February 20th, 2025 has been read and recommends it to be approved. Representative Jarvis.
Thank you. And our doctor of the day is actually, we have 3 doctors of the day. So if you, ladies and gentlemen, could go ahead and there you go. This is Dr. Rob Monger, MD, rheumatology from Cheyenne, and he has 2 student doctors with him today, Samantha Britz from Wheatland and Shani Bauer from Thermopolis. Dr. Monger is a rheumatologist in Cheyenne and is also the clinical dean of Wyoming WWAMI Medical Education. And Samantha is a 4th-year medical student from Wheatland, and Shani is a 3rd-year medical student from Thermopolis. So please welcome them to the House. Thank you for being here, and I hope you don't have any business today, but we're glad that you're here. Okay, next on our list of things we've got going here, we get the honor and the privilege of being able to see off our intern, the granddaughter of Representative Washut. So if Natalie, if you wouldn't mind, I understand you have something that you'd like to share with us, so please do so.
The one that says push, okay. Turns out you press the button that says push. So I just want to issue a few thank yous for letting me be here this week. So first off, to everyone in this room, thank you so much for having this program. I know it wouldn't exist without your guys' consent and willingness to work with high schoolers who have no clue what they're doing. Thank you so much for supporting this program, and special thank you to my grandfather, Representative Art Washut, for being my personal chauffeur over the course of this week and putting up with my constant inability to be on time. Thank you so much for helping me get down here and work as a student page. I know I would not have been able to come down if you weren't willing to help out with that. I also want to issue a quick thank you to the people who work the break room, literally the best room in this entire building. Thank you so much for the people who clean it and restock it, and especially to Ms. Lovett for always marking me present. I don't think I've done that a single day, that I've been here. So thank you for remembering to mark me as here. I've learned so much while I've been here. It's really been interesting to watch. As a lot of you know, I do speech and debate, but it's really interesting to watch how those skills transfer over to the legislative process. And it was really interesting, especially to listen to some of the debates. On a surface level, I'd hear a bill and I'd think, yes, of course, or no, why would you ever think that's a good idea? But listening to some of the arguments and agreements, it was obvious that the people here put in a lot of work and a lot of deep thought to really analyze whether this would be the best thing for the state of Wyoming. And it really proved to me that everyone here wants the best for Wyoming and for the people living in Wyoming. So thank you all again so much for having this opportunity and for letting me come and serve as your student page for this week.
Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, privilege of the floor.
By all means, privilege. Yeah.
Mr. Speaker, I've only been here for 9 years, but that is the fastest I have ever seen somebody give a speech and exit this floor. So kudos to her.
I could not have said that better myself, Representative Brown. I was just going to opine on, I mean, that young lady was focused and shot out of here like a cannon. That was fantastic. And just, Natalie, for 1 second, we do have to tell you, you have been a real blessing to us here in the body, and we really are thankful. And it's just, to me, our children and our grandchildren are a reflection of the people that their grandparents are. And so you are a wonderful testimony and statement about your granddad and his efforts in your life, and I'm sure his direction of your parents. And so we were blessed to have you here. Thank you. And we so appreciate your time and energy that you've invested in us as much as the time and energy that the other folks around here have invested in you. So be blessed, enjoy your life, and enjoy your family. You are truly a blessed young lady, and we're blessed to know you. So thank you for being here. All right, we have no messages from the Senate. Enrolled acts and concurrences is next item on our agenda, ladies and gentlemen. So we'll get those out of the way now. We are at that order of business of signing of enrolled acts. First act for our consideration, Senate and Joint Resolution Number 1.
House Enrolled Joint Resolution Number 1, being original House Joint Resolution 1. A joint resolution requesting Congress to introduce a bill and enact law to amend Wyoming's Act of Admission to authorize the expenditure of earnings for the support of the common schools in Wyoming. Whereas on July 10th, 1890, the United States Congress enacted the Act of Admission that admitted Wyoming as a state in the United States of America. And whereas the Act of Admission granted the state of Wyoming 2 sections of land in every township for the support of common schools. And whereas the Act of Admission specified that any proceeds from the disposition of granted school lands were to constitute in a permanent school fund, the interest of which only shall be expended in the support of said schools. And whereas the Act of Admission specified that a percentage of the proceeds of the sales of federal public lands in Wyoming were to constitute a permanent fund, the interest of which only shall be expended for the support of the common schools in Wyoming. And whereas the Act of Admission specified that certain previous granted lands constituted a permanent fund with the interest and income to be used for university purposes. And whereas the state created the common school account within the permanent land fund in accordance with the requirements of the Act of Admission and Article 7, Section 2 of the Wyoming Constitution. And whereas the common school account within the permanent land fund has grown over the years and has been invested to where the current value of the land or the fund exceeds $5,600,000,000. And whereas the investment of the funds in the common school account generates earnings and capital gains that are in addition to interest and income generated from the funds. And whereas an amendment to the Wyoming's Act of Admission that would replace references to interest and income with references to earnings will be better reflected the reality of how the common school account is invested and will allow the earnings that are generated from the investment of the permanent funds of the common school account to be better and more efficiently applied for the benefit of Wyoming's public schools. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the members of the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
I am about to sign Enrolled Act number 1, Joint Resolution number 1, having been original House Joint Resolution number 1. I have so signed. Next joint act for resolution for our consideration, number 22.
House Enrolled Act number 22, being original House Bill 132. An act relating to motor vehicles, authorizing annual permits for hauling prefabricated buildings, panels, and trusses, authorizing annual permits for hauling forest products, baled hay, and combined headers, specifying permit fees, requiring rulemaking, and providing for an effective dates, being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
I am about to sign Enrolled Act number 22, being original House Bill number 132. I have so signed. Congratulations, Representative Smith. Planning Committee reports.
Senate File 9, sponsored by Judiciary, Restoration of Rights Amendments, an act relating to criminal procedure. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 1, Judiciary, to whom is referred Senate File 9 engrossed, Restoration of Rights Amendments, respectfully report, same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Representatives Brady, Bratton, Chestick, Filer, Kelly, Lean, Singh, Washit, Webb. Representative Washit, Chairman. Senate File 22, sponsored by Senator Schuler, ground for termination of parental rights, guardianship, an act related to children. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 1, Judiciary, to whom is referred Senate File 22 engrossed, grounds for termination of parental rights, guardianship, respectfully report, same back to the House with the recommendation that do pass. Ayes, Representatives Brady, Bratton, Chestick, Filer, Kelly, Singh, Washit, Webb. Excused, Representative Lean. Representative Washit, Chairman. Senate File 100, sponsored by Senator Schuler, child witnesses, courtroom procedures, an act relating to criminal procedure. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 1, Judiciary, to whom is referred Senate File 100, engrossed, child witnesses, courtroom procedures, respectfully report, same back to the House with the recommendation that do pass. Ayes, Representatives Brady, Bratton, Chestick, Filer, Kelly, Lean, Singh, Washit, Webb. Representative Washit, Chairman. Senate File 138, sponsored by Senator Dockstader, Energy Impact on Wyoming Economy Study, an act relating to energy. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 9, Minerals, Business, and Economic Development, to whom is referred Senate File 138 engrossed, Energy Impact on Wyoming Economy Study, respectfully report, same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Representatives Heiner, Knapp, Larson, Lawley, Schmid, Tarver, Weber. Excused, Representatives Campbell and Regans. Representative Heiner, Chairman.
Thank you, Reading Clerk. Ladies and gentlemen, we are at that order of business of bills on second reading. First bill for our consideration will be Senate File number 4.
Senate File 4, sponsored by Travel, State Park Peace Officers, Definition and Scope of Authority, an act relating to criminal procedure.
Senate File 4 having been read 2 separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. Next Senate File for our consideration, Senate File 43.
Senate File 43, sponsored by Agriculture, Temporary Water Use Agreements and Amendments, an act relating to water.
Senate File 43 having been read 2 separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. Next bill for our consideration, Senate File 61.
Senate File 61, sponsored by Senator Case, Pollution Control Property Tax Exemption, Applicability, and act relating to environmental quality.
Senate File 61 having been read 2 separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. Next Senate File for our consideration, Senate File 72.
Senate File 72, sponsored by Senator Brennan, Summer Vacation Preservation Act, an act relating to education,
We have amendments. Representative Yin, please.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. I move second reading amendment number 1, corrected copy to Senate File 72, and ask for your favorable consideration. So members, as we heard in Committee of the Whole, this bill does two things. One, it restricts the normally by default approved plan for a school year between Labor Day and Memorial Day. And the other part is allowing for a school district to have less days. The amendment is really to prevent the restriction of those two boundary dates, so they don't have to go to a state board to get an approved plan. As we heard, there are several districts that have plans that would now have to be submitted to the state board if we didn't have this amendment and had the bill become law. And so with that, I just want to preserve that bit of local control and ask for your favorable consideration. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Representative Yin. Representative Andrew, first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On and against, the school boards can already apply for an exemption to the board, and the precedent is that these exceptions are always granted. It's only there to prevent something really crazy, but we do want to try to at least encourage, as a state, having a summer between those two dates, because we hear very often that that is what parents and teachers really want, and it also allows for both students and teachers, if they choose, to be able to have alternative employment, such as in the tourism industry, in the agriculture industry, or something like that, if they choose that. And that, especially for students, can be a very educational experience, or a very educationally beneficial experience as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Byron, for your first time, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On and for, folks, I think that we really need to get, we heard just now that it's about those really crazy times that it may or may not happen. What we need to get at is we need to stop restricting it. This bill is obviously quite confusing, and the more opportunity you get, I'd encourage you to really read it and dig into it. But adding this language to the Green Book just simply muddies everything. So taking it out via this amendment clears it up, and we can move forward with the bill, and I encourage an aye vote.
Any other members? Representative Campbell, your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On and for the amendment. Absolutely in favor of giving as much control to our local school districts as possible, and not putting the burden on the school board. So it seems to have the most flexibility. We need to leave it up to the schools. And I'm going to push back a little bit. I've heard from a lot of students and parents that they like this. I have not heard from a single teacher. Every teacher in every school district, every administrator has reached out and said, this is not good, this is not good. So as a kiddo, yeah, I absolutely appreciate it. But I don't think it serves our teachers and administrators. So on and for the amendment.
Representative Eklund, for your first time, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Speaker.
Good morning, Representative Eklund. How are you, sir?
I'm good.
Good to have you here.
So I've listened to this bill, and I'm probably going to be a no vote on it because of the local control piece of it. Yeah, that's only part of it. The other part of it is to add regulation to an already fairly heavily regulated industry, which is our schools. Just doesn't make any sense to me. The main district that I represent is a 4-day week, and they'd probably have to get this variance from board that they shouldn't have to get. I just am convinced we leave them alone and manage. If you've got a problem, you've got school board members you can talk to, or others that can help you with this problem. But our grandkids go to State Fair. They have since grade school. They've not had any trouble with the school system, and they've been there. Well, school has already started, and there are ways that they get around the sports kids that are at State Fair, find ways of getting their practices in up there. The town that it's in, they're really good about helping that happen simultaneously with the State Fair. So I think this amendment is I don't know. I think the amendment probably helps the bill, but I just really can't see that we put any more regulation than we've already got on the schools.
Thank you, Representative Brown, for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, left here last night and went and had a quick dinner and had a dinner with a friend of mine that's got 2 kids in school, and I telling them about this bill, and the discussion kind of turned around and they said, I really like the idea of having this period of time off, but when is the legislature going to keep their hands off of what's going on in my school? And the conversation, this is a literal conversation, turned into, well, are they going to start dictating when we get Christmas break? Are they going to start dictating when I don't get spring break because we have to fit in so much school? And then the conversation turned even from there to, there's so many discussions about public school, yet we're trying to send money over to the private schools. Where is this conversation really boiling up from? And it really got me thinking on this particular amendment in general here. This is akin to us coming in and having somebody from Washington, D.C. tell us we can only meet in the legislature for so many days and we have to get out of here. Now, we have that. That's in our Constitution. And we're bound by that. Do we want to do that to the kids in school and to the teachers in school and then continue to chide the professionals that are in these classrooms trying to teach and chide them and say, we're going to give you 3 less weeks a year to continue to make sure that you make your strides? I really struggled with this bill, and I was asked to be a co-sponsor, and I told the sponsor, I said, I really like the idea, but I really don't like the implications. So this amendment helps. I agree with the good former chairman of transportation from this community here. It helps the bill, but I still don't think I can support it all the way through unless we clean it up a little bit more on 3rd reading. But I appreciate it was good debate last night. This is good policy making. So thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Clouston, your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just for everybody who has a rural school, a small school, and they're already on a 4-day school week. So I heard this from our smaller school in our district. This will further extend their day already, right? So they've already extended their day because they go 4 days a week. And now we're going to put this confinement on them, Labor Day to Memorial Day. So now they're going to have to add another 20 to 30 minutes on their already extended school day. So if you have a rural school that's already doing 4 days a week, this is probably going to make it so they really can't do that. They may lose that 4-day school week option. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Guggenmoss, your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's my understanding that those schools that have already opted for the 4-day week have already requested and obtained what would be the term, an exemption from the normal school year that's in place right now. So those that are in that 4-day school week already are in another category. This bill would not apply to them whatsoever, just for clarification.
Representative Jarvis, your first time.
Thank you, Speaker. So I did a little bit of math, and if a school district currently is abiding by the 175 days, and they go down to the 165 days, they have to add 21 minutes to their day. So that impacts a lot of different things in the community. So if this bill goes through and that becomes law, school districts have 2 choices. They just get to tell their parents, guess what, we're extending the day by 21 minutes. And that impacts buses, after school activities, all like athletics, things that are already done. We're making this active. So when we do school schedules, Natrona County has already planned the next 5 years out, and they've given it to their parents because graduation was already set dates for which people can start to plan Holidays were already set, so people have already purchased tickets to go to these places. Families have organized their lives already around these schedules. And in order to put these schedules in place, they've met with their school boards, they've met with their communities, they've met with a whole bunch of constituents to adopt and approve those schedules. There's a huge process that takes place. And now we're going to come in and say, you know what, all of that work that you did, sorry. And if you want to keep that work, now you have to have 2 more public meetings. You have to go through the whole process of filling out all of the paperwork and go through an exemption process to get to keep the schedule that your districts have gone through and already approved. So by doing this, we're impacting a lot of people and a lot of people's planning that has already occurred and is already set. When you look at this, if you change with this amendment, that actually directly supports what the good representative from the same county, as I alluded to last night with the teacher salaries, the way that it's written right now, teacher salaries are figured on day rate. So if the day rate doesn't decrease, right, but you decrease by 10 days, salaries can go down with the way that this is written and how our funding systems are set up. So we're going to add 21 minutes to everybody's day, and there's the potential of the salaries going down by 10 days because it's a day rate that those salaries are figured on. And then your classified staff who are paid hourly and daily, who are not salaried, there's nothing in here that helps them. They have the potential of losing that income of 10 to 15 days, depending on how people adjust to this. And we're making it mandatory. So I am ironically on and for this amendment and against the bill.
Thank you, Representative. Any other members for their first time? Representative Angelos, first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to clear up a little bit of information on this. This will not affect our 4-day rural schools schedules. They can still apply for the exemption, and if they want to begin before Labor Day and go, after Memorial Day, they can do that. They just have to apply for the exemption. This allows them the opportunity. It is not forcing anybody. So our 4-day school, rural school will not be affected. So they can just apply for the exemption. Anyone can apply for the exemption. This just encourages school districts to stop before Memorial Day and start after Labor Day. It's an encouragement. It's not mandatory. Any of the school districts can apply for the exemption.
Representative Lean, for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to mention that 21 minutes a day doesn't sound terrible. For the older students, they're usually hanging out in a parking lot before and after school anyway. This just makes sure that their learning time is accelerated. And furthermore, for those elementary students, we have after-school programs in many locations. This just makes sure that they're still learning and not transitioning to a gym to play card games. Learning doesn't only happen in a classroom setting. On and in favor of the bill, opposed to the amendment.
Representative Davis, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good day. Hey, if this doesn't apply to rural schools, what is 80% of Wyoming rural schools? So we're bringing this for the other 20% of Wyoming? Both my daughter-in-laws are teachers. You add another half an hour here, another half an hour a day, it takes away from the family time at home. It's just pushing beyond what we should be doing. I think we leave this at the local control and let it be. I don't see a reason for this.
Yep, we're still on, and by the way, good morning, Representative Davis. Yep. Representative Provenza.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I would just urge some caution on saying that the 21 minutes is about playing card games or hanging out in a parking lot. What I hear is that our teachers are burnt out and they're struggling. And while you might argue that we're giving them more days, we're cramming more professional development, we're cramming more time for them to prep their classes. That 21 extra minutes a day that they have to teach is probably equal to 90 minutes of prep that they have to do for the next day. These concerns, again, I just want to say, I believe teachers and I believe people that work in schools when they tell me things and they tell me that they don't support this bill. And so I just want to urge caution on saying that their kids are just hanging out in parking lots, because I think families are struggling to get their kids to the activities that they need to afterwards, and I don't want to dismiss that.
Representative Alleman, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Teacher pay rates are usually determined by just two things: years worked in the district and number of postgraduate credits earned as recognized by that district. Thank you.
Representative Harshman, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On and for the amendment, any amendment that'll help this bill. I think the key thing here is time. And once you start chipping away at this thing, it's, and maybe that's a problem with these digital watches. You can't see kind of where we've been and how much we got left. And you start taking away this time, it's going to be less math, less science, less welding, less agribusiness, less whatever you want for our kids to learn. And they've only got this window. And then once the window just keeps shutting, every year they go through a grade and then it closes. And you aren't going back on that. And so I think we've got to be really careful here. We've got, as I said yesterday, the best public education system in the United States, one of the best in the world, 97% of our kids, and we've got locally elected school boards. And I think we now have on this floor one parent who has actually gone to school in our public schools and has a kid in public schools. 1 out of 62 of us. And I was glad to hear from her yesterday. And so I think we got to think about who we're representing and who really wants this bill, and why then we want to make over a 5% cut to the block grant, because that's what's going to happen. You're taking 10 days from 185. So that block grant's going to shrink. And I would just say to the representative from Natrona County who just spoke, reading that from your phone about teacher pay, all those are components, but it's based on a daily rate. That's how it works. And now you're going to have less days. And so I just think, be careful of this. It sounds kind of cool, but I think you let local communities decide what's best for their local community. So on and for the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Any other members for their first time? First time? Second time? Oh, we got one coming. Representative Ottman, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Speaker, I've been kind of up and down. I would just say in Wyoming, mandatory school days are 175. Working in a small school district, yes, there is public input as far as the school calendar, there is teacher input, and then it goes to the superintendent and the board. They try to take all things into consideration, and then the determinations are made. But let me also say is that when teachers get out of school, sometimes the second week of June, and then there's summer school, and there's events, and there's rec programs, and then they are required to do a little bit of training during the summer, and then they are required to get back to school sometimes the end of the first week of August these days. There is burnout. I heard somebody say that. There's a lot of burnout. Families that have, the representative just said that we only have so many people in Wyoming that are here. Yeah, families want to travel over the summer. Families want to go visit friends and relax a little bit. Children that have divorced parents want to go see that other parent. People in the agricultural areas need people to help irrigate and help vaccinate and help move pipe and do those things, all of which can be done when there's a summer vacation. So while every district is different, you may not be doing that in the cities. That does happen in the country. There's also rodeo. I haven't heard a person mention rodeo and the scheduling there and all the travel and things that people do and how those systems and those award systems are cut short because they only have about 7 weeks off in the summer. So I would just say this really should be up to the individual districts because their populations and their needs are all different.
Representative Erickson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have 3 major concerns. I talked a little bit about those, but they've even become more of a concern as we move through this and talking to constituents. Number one, you have to apply for this exemption, which can be cumbersome. And as I said yesterday, there's plenty of opportunity for people to participate in the calendar setting. And that could really be great for local input, which I think would be something that we'd want to keep. And then I have a concern when we're generally taking off sideboards off of charters, privates, and homeschools during this session, but we're turning up regulation on public schools. I would urge us to be a little more consistent on that. And then also, I have a great concern with the fall participation. If districts did choose to go to this through their exemption or whatever they wanted to do and went after Labor Day, the fall participation would be tough. I know we have a hard time right now even getting enough to field some of the fall teams in some of the smaller schools. So I think that would further discourage participation if they had to go in, required to go in and practice early in August. So anyway, I'd like you to consider those things. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Singh, first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And just to be clear, we're on first time? Thank you. So, members, I just wanted to chime in here. This is a bill that I'm wrestling with, and I have a couple of thoughts. So I am a product of the Wyoming education system. I graduated from high school here in Wyoming, and I do recall just the length of time in between sessions when it came to summer vacation. That did affect my ability to retain the lessons that we were talking about here. And so the longer of a break between consecutive lessons on the same topic will affect a student's ability to remember that information. And so I do think that is something to keep in mind as we talk about this bill. In addition, when it comes to a homeschooling type of situation with parents and students, the homeschoolers, they do have an advantage because they're being educated year round. There is not a stopping point in which they are receiving instruction. That relationship is still there. And my third concern with this bill, I don't want to be a Debbie Downer. I loved summer vacation. It was great. But when we talk about just the wider conversation, as we zoom out to a satellite type of a scale, our national adversaries, they do not have these type of instituted long-term breaks in their education system. And I think that's something to keep in mind when we talk about the framing and the timing of our education system. I'm very happy for localized families to have their own homeschooling system. I think that's fantastic. And if there are private institutions or charter institutions that want to have alternative scheduling for education, I think that's also up to them. But when it comes to our public education system, I don't think we should necessarily prolong the interactions between the teacher and the pupil when it comes to our education. And so I guess I just wanted to voice that. Those are my thoughts on the bill, and I know we're on the amendment. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Any other representative for their first time? First time? Seeing none? Now, second time. Representative Jarvis, second time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to add one more thing that I just thought of while I was sitting there. Is the way that this is written also when it reduces it from 185 days to, I believe it says, let me find it really fast, but I think it's down to 170 or 175. Don't quote me on that exactly. But what that's reducing is the professional development days for teachers as well. And when you reduce that in law, we can't increase professional development days as school districts without compensation, because there's a very active union that exists here in our state. And then it puts us in a really tough situation because we already have statute that requires so many literacy hour training. I think it's 28 hours of literacy that we have to provide for our K-3 teachers. We have compliance training, we have parent-teacher conferences, we use every single one of those days to the absolute fullest. And that's that opportunity to really provide that professional development on teaching teachers how to teach reading, teaching teachers how to implement, giving them the time to create their curriculum and to be able to create their plans for the year. This isn't supporting any of that work. And I strongly encourage over the weekend for people to go and ask your teachers who said they're all for this, if they're okay with the 21-minute a day increase, are they still okay with it? Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Eklund, for your second time.
Mr. Speaker, so I heard it. I tried reading in there if there's an exemption for 4-day weeks, and it's not. We add a layer of bureaucracy that allows the exemption if they go through that layer with this bill. And the other part that was just brought up is, why isn't there a section in here that mandates this on homeschool? That's basically a school family at home. Maybe they shouldn't be able to finish later than Memorial Day or start before Labor Day without the same requirements of the regular public school system. So, I think we ought to think hard before we start mandating these things, adding layers of bureaucracy that don't need to be there.
Any other representatives? Representative Angelos, second time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to answer some of those questions. To the last speaker, homeschool is not publicly funded, so that's why we are not mandating that on them. This does not add days again to our 4-day school weeks. They can put in an exemption. Currently, the layer of bureaucracy is already there. The schools that want alternative schedules already have to apply for the exemption. So we're not adding another layer, it's already there. And to be consistent, this is a pro-family bill. I want kids home with their families, and I am pretty consistent about that, of being a pro-family. Let's see if there's one other. This is local control. This gives the option to school districts to either participate in starting after Labor Day and ending before Memorial Day. It gives them the option. If they do not want it, they can apply for the exemption, which is already there for alternative scheduling. So on and against.
Thank you, Representative. Any others for their second time? Second time? Seeing none, back to the bringer. Representative Yin.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. Members, thank you for that wider discussion on the bill than my amendment, but I appreciate all of the discussion. Members, again, this amendment, all it does is remove that restriction that forces a school board to go to the State Board of Education and ask for an exemption for having a schedule that goes outside of Labor Day and Memorial Day. With this amendment, I'm not touching any other portion that allows them that additional flexibility, again, to not go to the State Board of Education to have less days, right? So even without this bill, a school board could ask for less days and go to the State Board of Education. What the bill does is it takes away that requirement, that layer of bureaucracy of going to the State Board of Education and asking for less days. The other side of the bill adds that layer of bureaucracy that wasn't there before. It adds the layer that says a school board cannot make a schedule outside of these 2 dates unless they go to the State Board of Education and ask for an exemption. I understand that there are some districts that already asked for exemptions for alternative schedules. From my understanding, mine is not one of them. And I believe that there are others here that have school districts that need more flexibility in their schedules. So why would we have language that restricts the flexibility? And so I really appreciated the comments from the good representative from Fremont County saying, you know, all of our districts are different. All of our districts are different. So to say that teachers and students want these, I mean, they might want it in one school district. Great, go to your school board district, the school board for your district, and advocate for that schedule. Why tie the hands of places that haven't asked for this or don't necessarily want this with this part where we have to go ask for approval from the State Board of Education? If the bill is actually about flexibility, then keep that flexibility part, but take out the restriction part. This is the restriction part. If that's something that we want to encourage, I think we can resolve to tell folks that, but don't add another layer of government to force a school board to apply to something when they should already have the flexibility to handle things like rodeos, to handle things like their industry schedules for the parents in that district, to handle things that are a wide range of things that this bill doesn't necessarily contemplate. Let's keep it closer to home, to that individual school district, rather than restricting it with the language that this amendment is removing. So with that, I ask for your favorable consideration of this amendment. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Representative. Body, you are voting on second reading amendment number 1 to Senate File 72. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The amendment has been adopted. Division being called. All those in favor, please stand. Okay. You may be seated. All those opposed? The amendment has died on a vote of 27-27. Huh? Okay. Next amendment for our consideration, number 2. Representative Harshman.
Thank you,
please.
Mr. Speaker. I'd move second read amendment number 2 to Senate File 27. Members, this amendment keeps the before Labor Day, if you look at the amendment line 20, keeps the before Labor Day and then moves the start, instead of Memorial Day, it says on line 21, not less than 1 week after the conclusion of the Wyoming State Fair. And that is next year, the 16th. So you could start school a week later. And what that does then, and I remove all that 165 and cutting the 10 days off the thing, and it gives you a couple extra weeks then for districts to, and that counts a couple week Christmas, New Year's vacation, and gives another week or so in there to work on President's Day, you know, if there was a spring break or whatever. So it fits the weeks in the schedule. So that's the amendment. Thanks, Mr. Speaker.
Members for their first time? First time? None? No? We do? Here? Okay, now. Representative Lean, first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just a question for the bringer of the amendment. When would families go on vacation? And we already have attendance problems within school districts. So by extending the school year, are we then setting up more students for failure?
Representative Washut.
Thank you. I guess my concern with the amendment is more of a weather-related thing. You know, that first week of June, oftentimes damp and rainy and not particularly nice, but that last week in August is sometimes the nicest week of the summer. So, you know, we're putting kids back into classrooms when it's really hot outside and forcing them to take break when it's damp and rainy in a lot of parts of the state. And so I'm not sure that, I guess I'd probably go with it more the other way, where we would force the schools to adjourn later, or allow them to adjourn later, but make them not start the semester too early in August when it's still hot.
Representative Brown, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm honestly asking the good representative from the center part of the state that just got up and asked if we keep kids in school longer, if it's going to make the kids fail more. I want to know if that's what I heard, because that is quite literally the exact opposite of what empirical science and data shows. So just wanted to make sure I understood that we just demeaned every single teacher in this state by saying that when their kids are in these classrooms learning, they're failing.
Representative Jarvis.
Thank you, Speaker. And just to build on what was said from the good representative, I look at a lot of data. And our K-3 literacy requires that we do the progress monitoring 3 times a year. And I can tell you, there's this thing called the summer slump, and it happens to almost every single kid, and some kids a lot more than others. But that data from the time for which the end of the year happens and the summer, you always see the slide back. And then the first couple weeks of instruction are review. And it's really bringing them back up to speed, and they're re-engaging their brains. And there's been a ton of discussion in the educational world that the best possible schedule would be year-round, but it doesn't work with our lives. And when I say best possible schedule, I mean for learning. The best possible schedules for learning opportunities is truly year-round. And the data, 1,000 times over, supports that. There is no data that speaks otherwise. So the having them there longer, this is really for the benefit of being able to have summer jobs and a life outside of school. But we're forcing, and I'm really questioning the role of this body. Is it our jobs to force one way that we like best on everybody in the state. Thank you.
Any other members for their first time? Representative Andrew.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On and against, I think we need to keep the 165 days. That's what provides the flexibility and the increased local control in this bill.
Other members for the first time? No, first time, second time? On the amendment? Seeing none, to the bringer. Representative Harshman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just to answer a couple quick questions. I brought this amendment really from yesterday's debate. A good representative in Converse County where the state fair is held. And over the years, I've had many students attend the state fair. And of course, right in the middle of football practice, and it's great. They're some of our best football kids. They're just good at everything, right? And so those things are always great. But she talked about that, and I just wanted to, and I don't think any schools are really starting before that anyway, but this would put it a week after that to make sure that that's an opportunity. As far as the comment from the representative from Natrona County on attendance and all that, I didn't quite understand it, but I think if you go back to like the other representative from Campbell County that's a few years older than me, we graduated from the same small high school in Natrona County, I should say. And I'm looking at him. He's an Oiler, just like me. We graduated there. And when we were in high school at that time, the graduation rate in Wyoming and really across the United States was about 60, 70%. Because kids didn't have to finish high school to get a good job or go to the military. And of course, that whole world has changed now. And so now we have the highest graduation rates really in American history, right up in the high 80s as a state, pushing 90%, the highest it's ever been in our American history. And of course, we're the only country in the world that really founded public education. We knew that, our founders, that's what the pursuit of happiness is. It's one of George Washington's greatest regrets. He didn't get a formal education. So we've got this great system now where nearly 90% of our kids are graduating. We're number one in the nation in ACT scores, our juniors. And so I don't want to try to cram, and then I'll just say this, as a 38-year veteran teacher who's been in this business a long time and really blessed to do it. Loved every minute. I received more, I think, than I gave. And I think kids are ready to kind of get back to school. And when you start football on August 12th and cross country and all those sports, and state fair will end on the 16th, and then we can start school the next week, the thing will be perfect. And most of these ranch kids I've had, they're glad to come to football practice, get off the ranch, man. And then I think gives them a little reprieve. Football practice is easy. And then I think the transportation piece for parents is a big deal as well. And you start these fall activities a month ahead of the start of schools, it's a problem for parents. And in the springtime, those are all wrapped up, the third week in May. So I think it just works better with our schedule. As far as the weather, I'm not a meteorologist. Good luck. Nice comment, but I'm not buying that. And I think all of our schools now are air conditioned as well, and climate. We've changed all the circulation in these schools and all that, so that all works. And finally, Mr. Speaker, so I just really brought this amendment just because of really the debate yesterday about the state fair, and I thought I'd throw that in there. And we do not want to cut the number of days that have pushed our kids to the top of ACTs and one of the highest graduation rates. We do not want to dismantle that. So on and for the amendment, encourage an enthusiastic aye vote, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Body, you are voting on second reading amendment number 2 to Senate file number 72. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. Chairs in doubt, vision. Very evenly split. That particular sound, we'll find out momentarily. Please stand still. We'll get this counted. 20. You may be seated. Those opposed, please rise. Yeah, more than 20. Yeah, go ahead, you can sit down. Thank you. The amendment has not been adopted. Next amendment for our consideration, ladies and gentlemen, second reading amendment number 3 to House Senate File 72. Representative Campbell, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So I would move second reading, Amendment 3 to Senate File 72.
Please proceed.
Thank you, sir. So just wanted to capture the intent that was mentioned by a couple of our sponsors of this bill, and truly giving our school districts the option. So with that, we need to adjust some language, because as we know, when we make policy, and it's in the green books, words matter. So you will see with this amendment on page 3, line 14, we're removing that word shall, that each school district shall, and inserting may, because that is the word that gives them the option. Shall mandates it. So we will say every school district may operate between these days. On page 3, line 19, again, we will replace shall with may. So the school board, upon hearing these, may hold 2 public hearings if they deem that to be appropriate. And then again on page 4, line 1, removing the word shall and replacing it with may. So truly, I think this adjustment, keeping with the intent of this and giving our local school districts the flexibility and the option to best serve their communities and their students. The only way we can do that through policy is by making sure we have the right word choice. So may gives them that option, shall mandates it, and ties their hands together. So if we truly want to support our districts and give them that option and that flexibility, I would encourage you to vote for this amendment.
Any members? Representative Kelly, first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On and for this amendment, I was speaking yesterday about giving districts more flexibility, and quite frankly, we have shall in there. We are requiring another bureaucratic step for them to keep the schedule that they want. But I do like the idea of allowing districts to have the shorter school year if they choose so.
Any other members for their first time? First time? None? Back to the bringer? Second time, if you like. Members, you're voting on second reading amendment number 3 to Senate File 72. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. No. The amendment has been adopted. Members, Senate File 72 having been read 2 separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a 3rd time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. Next Senate file for our consideration, Senate File 75.
Senate File 75, sponsored by Senator Case. Coroner investigations, disposition of decedent's property, an act relating to county coroners.
Senate File 75 having been read 2 separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a 3rd time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. Next Senate file for our consideration, Senate File 82.
Senate File 82, sponsored by Water, omnibus water bill planning, an act relating to water development projects.
Senate File 82 having been read 2 separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a 3rd time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. Next Senate file for our consideration, Senate File 114.
Senate File 114, sponsored by Senator Landon, missing persons reporting requirement, an act relating to criminal procedure.
We have amendments. Chairman Washington.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move second reading amendment number 1 to Senate File 114. Ask for your favorable consideration. So folks, if you pull up your bill and take a look at page 4, line 22, the amendment inserts some additional language specific to what our law enforcement agencies need to do when they are the primary jurisdiction receiving the report. And one element that was not mentioned in the original bill Well, two items, actually. One was the photograph. And I think the vast majority of agencies do this. They ask for a photograph, a recent photograph of one's available. But now this inserts it into the bill with the rest of the protocol. And also cellular telephone information. In today's day and age, lots of missing persons have cell phones, and getting a ping locator on that cell phone is a critical piece of trying to locate folks. So it seems to make sense that we would include that in this protocol. And again, most agencies are already doing this, but we're putting it in the green book, putting the protocol in the green books. We might as well be complete in what we ask them. And then adding in there that without delay, the agencies will notify other agencies and their personnel about the pertinent information, cellular ping locator, and so forth. And then in subsection F, upon receipt of a missing person report, the primary jurisdiction shall evaluate the potential benefit of notifying area news media and making an announcement via social media channels. Again, this isn't mandating it because there may be circumstances where utilizing the news media may not be advisable, but it puts it into the protocol that you'll at least evaluate the potential benefit of using news media and social media in these efforts to locate missing persons. And I think the good speaker mentioned yesterday the idea that it's sometimes easier to locate a car, right? When we get a stolen car report, we immediately broadcast the license plate and vehicle description and last known location and direction of travel. It just makes sense that we do something similar when we're dealing with missing persons. So urge your support of this amendment.
Any members for their first time? Seeing no members, Representative Washington, you good? Members, you're voting on second reading amendment number 1 to Senate File 114. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. Amendment has been adopted. I believe that is it. So Senate File 114 having been read 2 separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. Next bill for our Senate file for our consideration, Senate File 130.
Senate File 130, sponsored by Senator Rothfuss, Emergency Assistance, Immunity, Mental Health Services, and Act relating to civil procedure.
Senate File 130 having been read 2 separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. Next Senate file for our consideration, Senate File 143.
Senate File 143, sponsored by Senator Nethercott, Public Monies, Deposits and Credit Unions, and Act relating to public funds.
Senate File 143 having been read 2 separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. The next Senate file for our consideration and last is 151.
Senate File 151, sponsored by Senator Jones, monthly ad valorem tax distribution amendments and Act relating to taxation and revenue.
Senate File 151 having been read 2 separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. Okay, ladies and gentlemen. Majority Floor Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the House resolve itself into committee of the whole.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed, no. The motion is carried. Representative Schmid, please. There we go. Thank you. All right, the committee of whole will please come to order. The first bill for our consideration will be Senate File 119. The reading clerk will please read the bill.
Senate File 119, sponsored by Senator Boner. Expedited professional licensure for military members, and act relating professions and occupations. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 8, Transportation, Highways, and Military Affairs, to whom is referred Senate File 119 engrossed, expedited professional licensure for military members, respect the report, same back to the House with the recommendation do pass with the following amendments. Ayes, Representatives Banks, Brown, Geringer, Larson, McCann, Nicholas, Posey, Tarver, Wiley. Representative Brown, Chairman.
You have heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Chairman Brown?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that when the committee of the whole rises to report it, do so with the recommendation that Senate File 119 do pass. Further move the adoption of the Standing Committee Amendment, and I will work that into the bill as we go forward. Committee, I wanted to bring this bill up last night because it's a fairly simple bill. What you'll notice is it's pretty lengthy, but what we're trying to do here is we're trying to help out our military veterans and their military spouses, right? So we have a lot of times where you'll carry some level of a certificate or some level of a professional degree or something like that that is adjudicated and given you permission to practice your authority in this state by a board or a commission. And we have worked on this for going on 7 years now, that we have really, really worked hard on this. And we finally have a bill that's just going to do what needed to be done about 7 years ago instead of piecemealing this. And that's what the bill that you have before you is it basically says, hey, look, if you're going to come in here and you're from the military and you hold some level of let's say an electrical degree or a plumbing degree or that experience, and you come in here and you come to this state, you're going to be able to carry that level of experience and you're going to be able to get that certification passed through your board without having to wait for a temporary licensure or a long drawn-out process and an application to go through everything that we've done. We've piecemealed this together for our spouses of military veterans because that was really the bigger concern that we had through over the past 7 years, was getting our spouses taken care of. But what we've heard through testimony over the past 5 to 6 years is we actually have a lot of veterans that are facing this issue as well. And so that's exactly what this bill does, is this bill provides basically the authority of any person that is separated from service that has professional licensure through the military to walk into their licensure board here in the state, and they're going to be able to be given a temporary utilization of their permit, right? So if it's an electrician and they've got the experience as a military member and they're working on, whether it's Navy and they're working on the ships, or whether that's in the Air Force and they're working on the airplanes, or whatever the case may be, they're going to be able to transfer that and they're going to have a temporary licensure over the course of up to 90 to 120 days. The other thing that this bill does is it speeds up that application process for these military members and gets them started with a temporary permit. And what you'll see with the Standing Committee Amendment is you'll see on the top portion of this, the committee felt it was really, really important for us, and you'll also see a Standing Committee Amendment, a Committee of the Whole Amendment for myself, that we just didn't know quite how to word it. But what you'll see here is we are saying that they need to make sure that the biggest problem that we had is what they called a completed application. And the completed application was being hung up by a few of our boards saying, well, a completed application means that you have this 35-item checklist completely filled out. And one of the biggest issues that we had with that is some of these boards and commissions require fingerprinting. And that fingerprinting background check takes anywhere between 90 and 120 days. And so we have these people that are sitting here waiting to go to work, and they're sitting there for 3 to 4 months and not able to do anything until this completed application comes back. So what we said is, no, you need to do a temporary application and you need to grant them this temporary licensure while that is going forward. The other thing that we heard in committee was an actual spouse here that is a mental health counselor and is trying to get to practice here, has been here for almost 6 months, And she was being required to go out and find all of her college transcripts and find all of her documentation from all of the places that she has worked in the past to make that a completed application. And that completed application, if she's able to work in 5 other states, we were having a really hard time in committee finding out why would we not want her to work here, especially when we have a mental health professional licensure issue going on in our state. So we wanted to get her up and running. So you'll see the portion of this on the second portion of the amendment is to make this effective immediately. And we really want to make sure that our boards and commissions understand that this body and the body down the hall means business when we're saying that our military members and their spouses need to be licensed and need to be taken care of. So, Mr. Chairman, with the explanation of the amendment, I do see one question coming up. I will move, I've already moved it, so I'll just take questions on the amendment. And if nothing else, I'd ask for an aye vote on the amendment.
All right, folks, you have heard the motion on the Standing Committee Amendment number 1. Is there any discussion on the amendment? All right. Question having been called, all those in favor of Standing Committee Amendment number 1, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The Standing Committee Amendment number 1 has been adopted. And we'll go back on the bill.
No, because there's a committee of the whole. All right. Representative Brown, would you like to move the committee of the whole amendment?
All right, Representative Brown, would you like to move the Committee of the Whole Amendment?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I would like to move Committee of the Whole Amendment number 1 to Senate File 119. And ladies and gentlemen, this was an additional piece, and you'll notice that there's quite a bit more language in this. Didn't really feel like doing this on the fly in committee and trying to make this not work the way we wanted to in the Standing Committee Amendment. So you'll see you've got myself and the other representative from this area. What we're trying to do with this particular amendment is require the boards and commissions to file and give these applications immediate granting. And if there's a background check that has to take place, if there's fingerprinting, those types of things, the board has additional time to go through that process. But in a completed application, we kind of redefine that. And what does that mean? If you've practiced for 3 years in another jurisdiction of substantially similar, and that's a term of legal art, a substantially similar utilization of your practice in another state, that would qualify as an actual completed application. So you don't have to go find all of your college transcripts again and find your history of all these things. And especially if you're military, you're moving and I don't know about you, but the last time I moved, I don't know where half the stuff is that I moved the first time. So that's what we're trying to do with this particular amendment is say, hey, look, if you've practiced in your profession for 3 years prior to you coming to Wyoming, we're going to value that. And we're going to see that as recognition that that's a completed application. And if there's anything else above and beyond that, the board can still go and do the fingerprinting and all that. So just a little bit more cleanup language on this particular Senate file. We try to make these a little bit better. These are not the greatest files when they come over to our body, so we just try to make sure they're better.
Is there any discussion on the amendment? Representative Ottman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What I would say is that I believe that there is a need for something like this, but where my hesitancy is that I know in teaching, if you go across state lines, you have to totally recertify here in the state of Wyoming. And also in different jurisdictions, some municipalities and things have signed on to international codes, some haven't. So how would that work with the expertise or the training or the requirements to fulfill and be Wyoming certified?
Any further discussion? Representative Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So good question. And then again, I'll go back to the fact that we've been working on this particular style of issue with our veterans and our families for 7 years now. And one of the issues that we first attacked was actually the teaching. So we have an organization here called PTSB, and they take care of licensing teachers. And one of the things that we did is we adopted some amendments to that statute about 5 years ago that actually fixed the military spouse licensure and those types of things. So teaching is one of those that's already taken care of. We're talking more the boards and commissions here, cosmetology, electrician, mental health counselors, those types of things that are regulated by an outside body that are boards and commission. To the question specifically about municipalities or anything like this, this is the state boards, right? So if you are licensed within a state board and you have a state licensure, this is what we're talking about. We're not going to be able to override anything at the local level. I mean, I suppose we could, but that's what we don't like DC doing to us. So we're just trying to make sure that our state level licensure for our military vets as well as their spouses is streamlined, and especially with this particular amendment, going back to this amendment specifically, is that if you've practiced in another jurisdiction with substantially similar requirements for 3 years, you're going to be covered and you can get your license here in Wyoming.
Is any, all right. Question having been called, all those in favor of Committee of the Whole Amendment Number 1, please say aye. Those opposed, please say no. Amendment Committee Number 1 of the Whole has been passed. We are back on the bill. Is there any further discussion on the bill? Representative Washut, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So as the good bringer of the bill remembers our debates in the past, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. If it makes sense to get all these regulations out of the way for our service members, our veterans, and their spouses, why not everybody else? If these regulations are so onerous as to cause a problem for our military families, they certainly cause similar issues for other professionals seeking to be licensed in our state. And if we have needs for electricians, and we do, and we have needs for plumbers, and we have needs for teachers, and we have needs for most of these professional groups, mental health included, why do we just carve out this little unique group of people and say, we're going to get these regulations out of the way for you, but we're going to leave them in place for everybody else? Loving our veterans, don't get me wrong there, I don't need hate mail, but I hope you get the point. If these regulations don't make sense for this group of people, they probably don't make sense for the broader population either.
Representative Filer, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On and for this bill, and with the last speaker's comments, I agree. And Wyoming does, just to throw this out there, folks, we do have a lot of reciprocating laws for different licenses like electricians and some other crafts. But these are, a lot of those crafts aren't, always in the military, say, spousal realm, if that makes sense. So I think this is a good step towards maybe cutting a lot more of those regulations so that we can get more folks here, not just military working. So I think this is a good step forward. I think throughout the interim, if we're all talking about maybe doing some deregulation and doing some more reciprocating on different crafts of different workers' licenses and stuff, let's do that. But I think this is a good step forward, and it shows our ambition and our strive in this state to start welcoming in a lot more workers to help build our state and teach our children and be nurses and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So on and for this bill, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Representative Geringer, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I too am for deregulating as much as possible. I think what we're trying to do is take one step at a time, one area at a time. And in this particular case, we're talking about the difference being when people voluntarily move to our state and going through the process versus being given orders to be in this state. and the ability to plan ahead and the ability to just jump right in and be able to work in their profession. I think that's the biggest difference here, is helping our military members and their spouses to be able to, once they get those orders, boom, here we go. And I would point out to the spouse that gave testimony in front of us, compared, she's been to 4 or 5 different states, and the ability to get licensed in those states was much quicker. In fact, specifically relating to Florida, within 10 days. Online application process within 10 days, she's able to move on and start engaging in finding work and have her licensure ready to go. So on and for this bill.
Representative Stivar, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Honored for this bill. This will help out. I mean, as an active duty spouse, they might be teaching somewhere. Let's take a teacher for 4 years at another post. Military comes us up, we're moving you to Cheyenne, Wyoming. That means that person can come right in here with that degree and start teaching, or as a social worker, or whatever profession it is. That's what we're trying to help out. On and for the bill.
Representative Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to wrap us up here and try to move us on before we go to lunch. Ladies and gentlemen, this is, I don't disagree with the good representative out of the Senate part of the state. We've had this discussion multiple times, and my answer is pretty much always the same. You want to deregulate? Let's have a deregulation bill. I don't disagree with you. That's my job, and my duty as the chairman of this committee is to work with the people that come forward in this committee and have these issues. And you know, it's frustrating when you hear this story of somebody that's been sitting there for going on 6 months and they're not able to help us out in our state and be a mental health counselor, when we're clawing at the doors trying to get them in here to be mental health counselors. And she's worked in other locations and she's just saying, please let me come do this. And our regulations are tying them up. Well, let's undo those chains. I am absolutely with you on that. Let's see that bill, but right now this is the bill that's before us. And as the good other representative from this county said, in my opinion, this is all about those people that are coming here not voluntarily, and they're doing a service by stepping next to not only their spouse, but also themselves, right? And if they're here, they get ordered here, and they say, you know what? I really like this state. I want to stay here. It happens way more than you'd think. This bill gives them the authority themselves to get licensed with that expectation that they're going to be taken care of immediately when they, you know, discharge from the service and they come to stay and live in our state. We want them here. Let's keep them here. On and for. Please vote aye.
Question being called. All those in favor of Chairman Brown's motion that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it does so with the recommendation that Senate File 119 do pass. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Senate File 119 has passed Committee of the Whole. The next bill for our consideration is Senate File number 110. The reading clerk will now read the bill.
Senate File 110, sponsored by Senator Brennan. Inclusion of crossing guards for Governmental Claims Act. An act modifying the Wyoming Governmental Claims Act to include crossing guard volunteers and faculty. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 8, Transportation, Highways, and Military Affairs, to whom is referred Senate File 110. Inclusion of crossing guards for Governmental Claims Act. Respectfully report, same back to the House with the recommendation that do pass. Ayes. Representatives Banks, Brown, Garinger, Larson, McCann, Nicholas, Posey, Tarver, Wiley. Representative Brown, Chairman.
You've heard the reading of the bill. Vice Chairman Banks.
You've heard the reading of the bill.
No, Chairman Brown.
Oh.
You've heard the reading of the bill. Chairman Brown, what is your pleasure?
Okay, you've heard the reading of the bill. Chairman Brown, what is your pleasure?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report it, do so with the recommendation that Senate File 110 do pass. And I will pass over quite possibly the easiest bill of the entire day to the good representative from where the snow is incredibly deep right now.
Okay.
Representative Banks.
Representative Banks, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So what this bill does is try and help out our school districts, our students, when it comes to public safety. So what we're doing here is going into statute 139-103, and we are allowing crossing guards and volunteers acting on behalf of the school district as crossing guards to be under this statute, acting in the scope of their official duties under statute 139-104, immunity from liability. Because what we're seeing is there's a problem in hiring crossing guards and setting up programs of crossing guards going to helping our students get to school because of liability issues and concerns. So what this does here is add crossing guards and volunteers acting as crossing guards on behalf of the school district, immunity from that liability like we do with other public employees. And so with that, that's a simple little bill that helps out our school district and our students. Please vote aye.
Is there any further discussion on the bill? Question being called. I'm sorry. Representative Lean, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a question for those that may have heard this in committee. Does the school insurance not already cover these things? And I know that they have some kind of insurance so that when they have volunteers in the school, they're not, there's an understanding of what those things look like. Just a question.
Chairman Brown, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And to answer that question directly, no. And that's exactly why this bill was brought forward. This community in particular is where this kind of ruminated from. And then when you started talking to some of the associations that represent all the school districts in total, they're basically told, no, you don't have that protection as a school crossing guard. That's just not there. Number one, they're out in the middle of the street. They're not on school property. There's a lot of different variables that go into this. And so this was the easiest and also the most simple way to get the protection for these school crossing guards to be protected from, frivolous lawsuits if something were to happen. And so pretty small bill, but really large implications on those that are trying to protect the kids crossing the streets.
Is there any further discussion on the bill? Question having been called, all those in favor of Chairman Brown's motion that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it does so with the recommendation that Senate File 110 do pass. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Senate File 110 has passed Committee of the Whole. The next bill for our consideration is Senate File 137. The reading clerk will please read the bill.
137? Yes. Senate File 137, sponsored by Senator Dockstader. School Finance, Cash Reserves, an act relating to school finance. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 4 Education, to whom is referred Senate File 137, School Finance, Cash Reserves, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes. Representatives Andrew, Bratton, Guggenmoss, Kelly, Lawley, Singh, Williams. Noes, Representative Strzok. Excused, Representative Erickson. Representative Andrew, Chairman.
You have heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Chairman Andrew?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it do so with the recommendation that Senate File 137 do pass. And I don't see a co-sponsor. I'm happy to explain it unless someone who's on the bill would like to. All right. Thank you, members. This bill is a very simple bill. Back during the events of 2020 and beyond, there was a lot of federal money coming into our system. So we increased the amount of cash reserves that our school districts could have from 15% to 30%. And the idea was that they could save the money while their operations were more limited, they were still getting their funds from the state, and they were getting federal money. There was a sunset on that of June 30th, 2026. All this bill does is kick that down the road 2 more years so that they can stay at that 30% level until June 30th, 2028. That's what the bill does. Thank you.
All right. Question being called. All those in favor of Chairman Andrews' motion that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it does so with the recommendation that Senate File 137 do pass. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Senate File 137 has passed Committee of the Whole. Mr. Majority Floor Leader, please.
I move that the Committee of the Whole rise to sit again and at 2 p.m. You have heard the motion.
You have heard the motion. All in favor? Say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. No. All right.
Committee announcements.
Committee announcements. Please. Chairman Bear, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Your committee number 2, House Appropriations, will be meeting in 15 minutes to discuss Senate File 197, Wyoming Generational Investment Account 2, and any re-referrals. We will also be meeting tomorrow. No, Monday. I'm not going to meet tomorrow. I knew something was wrong when I said that. No, your committee number 2 will be meeting Monday upon noon recess to discuss Senate File 70, Investment Modernization State Non-Permanent Funds, and Senate File 169, Strategic Investments and Projects Account Repeal, and re-referrals as assigned.
Chairman Knapp, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Your standing committee number 7, corporations, will meet at noon recess to hear the bills SF 51 engrossed, SF 52, SF 50 engrossed, and SF 59. So again, that's at noon recess. Thank you.
Chairman Andrew, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Your committee number 4, Education, will meet Monday, February 24th upon noon recess in Capitol Extension Room 3 to hear 2 bills, Senate File 109, Open Enrollment within Wyoming School Districts, and Senate Joint Resolution 1, Convention of States. Thank you.
I'm sorry. You've heard the Majority Floor Leader's motion. Stand in recess till 2 p.m. Have a great lunch, everybody.